On this week's episode, I'm joined by Pedro Prata. Pedro is the Executive Director and Team Leader of Rewilding Portugal, and we discuss, amongst other things, the incredible diversity of Portugal's wildlife and landscape, and the amazing work of Rewilding Portugal. Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal, The Simple Life. I'm excited to be joined here by Pedro Prata. Pedro, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. Well, thank you for the invitation and thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us. Pedro, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Pedro Prata, as you said, and I currently work with Rewilding Portugal. I'm a team leader for Rewilding Portugal. I'm 39 years old by now. I'm a father of a 5-year-old. I live in Guarda, which is central mountains in Portugal in the Serra da Estrela area, and that's where we have the office and where we've been working around this region. And well, I like everything related to nature. That's also good to have this kind of job, because even in my free time, in my hobbies, that's what I mostly do. I like to hike, I like to mushroom picking, I like to kayak, mountain bike, whatever. Outdoors.
Yeah, Pedro, lovely. I'm a big fan. I like hiking, stand-up paddleboarding, mountain biking, and wow, Portugal is an amazing place to do outdoor activities. For such a small country, we have everything. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's the benefits of diversity. You can find it all scenarios and all possibilities very close by around you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Pedro, I visited your region, the Guarda area, about 4 or 5 years ago. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. I was in, Idania Nova, Sortelia, Monsanto. Wow. It's just a beautiful part of the world. So peaceful, so quiet. It was really hot when I went there because I was there in July. It was like really hot. And I can imagine, and I can imagine in the winter it goes the completely opposite way.
It's the opposite by now. So we had this last 2 weeks of freezing cold. In Guarda, it never raised above minus temperature. So for a week long we were under zero temperatures, even the maximum. And in summer it turns around, and easily we go above 35 for weeks in a row. So that's the opposite, the polarity of the extreme weather that we face here. But it also gives a little bit of a special thing about it. It's so different from season to season that it makes it really special to visit any season of the year round.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, I loved it, and I want to visit again. I've promised my wife that I would take her to some of these places. She's Portuguese, but she hasn't had the chance to visit, some of those places like Monsanto and Sortelia, and they're just beautiful. But maybe you can tell people a little bit about your terra, your region, your village, what it's famous for, what you love about it, what you want people to know about it. Go ahead, tell us.
Yeah. So, I would say that my region, my terra, my background is Serra da Estrela. It's in the mountains in itself. So I'm actually from a small village in the mountains, and that's what I feel most at home. Like the place where you reconnect with your homestead. That for me, it's there. And what I love about it, it's obviously the vast ranges of nature that still has the free flowing rivers that are wild, that allows you to get lost in the woods. That's something that I treasure very much. And recently, due to my work, I kind of expand this a little bit more into the wider region. And once I did that, and I kind of got deeper into this landscape, I got to know all sorts of things that amazes me. For instance, one experience that I like a lot and I repeat it a lot, and I always get very excited about to visit the Koa engravings, so the Paleolithic engravings in the Koa Archaeological Park. It's just amazing. Every time I go there, it's just amazing. And then you have lots of castles, because this was the border region, so you have all this militarized border that change over time. So you have multiple constructions of castles and churches and all of this medieval culture, and with it the people that live here. I mean, you know, all the tradition, all the cuisine, all the specialities of the place. I love them, and it's something that I always recommend people to try out when they come and visit us. Just go through all of that and experience nature with it, and then you'll have an amazing visit, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, there were a few things that I remember about my visit there. The best lamb burrego that I ever ate in my life was there. It was just amazing. And then sorry.
And the cheese from Serra da Estrela is very well known nationally.
Yeah, Queijo de Serra is wonderful. But those castles make you proud to be Portuguese, because you think to yourself, okay, how did such a little a thin strip of land defend itself against the huge Spanish land? Yeah. And those castles were amazing, and you can see why. You can kind of see why. I mean, and the views, the silence, it's just a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. There's something you mentioned about how you love going back to your the little village that you spoke about in the mountains. What's it called?
It's called Vila Soeiro. It's a very small village. Vila Soeiro.
Soeiro.
Yeah, it's in the Mondego Valley. Actually up into the valley towards the mountains. A very small village. Currently has 30 people living in there, mostly old people, of course. And
amazing.
But that's the place where I feel at home. Well, my family is from there, so I always have that link. And I have my own home there where I stay, where I like to be, and it's the place where I always get back.
Beautiful. I mean, that's something I love about Portuguese culture is we spread all over the country and in some cases the world, but we have this link and this connection with even the smallest little village, and we never lose that connection. We always want to go back. We always want to be there. It's a beautiful part of the culture.
Yeah, but it's completely true. I agree.
Wonderful. Pedro, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your travels. You and I you mentioned in some of our previous conversations how you traveled quite a lot around the world. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I grew up in this region, and by the age of 18, so finishing high school, I had to leave to go to college, and I did my studies mostly in Lisbon, but after my graduation in biology, I went and traveled several places around the world, mostly America, and in the Americas I actually been from south to the north, all strange of the Americas. I lived in the Caribbean as well. I have been in parts of Africa and in Brazil for quite a while. And it was always related with the curiosity that moved me to learn more about the world, of course, and to the things that I like particularly in terms of work and research. That was biology and conservation and evolution. That was the things that led me to different projects around the world, places where I live for more or less time. And that's been my experience around the world. So I know America, North, South, the Caribbean, Europe, parts of Europe. I never went much to Asia, I think just because of chance, nothing else. But what drives me mostly was the curiosity. And then I came back, actually 18 years later, to my hometown, to Guarda, first because of a job that I got at the time, and I moved back, and I'm here since. So I'm 39 by now, so I'm here for 5 years already, so something like that. And I intend to stay because I have plans and projects going on for quite a while now, so I'm intending to focus in this region for now.
And what were some of the things that you missed about Portugal while you were in all these different places in the world?
I mean, that's a cliche to say that I miss the food, of course.
No, it's not. It's a cliche because it's true. It's a cliche because it's true.
But I understand, and I like the food that I tried everywhere in the world. I like the food tradition in itself, in the different varieties in terms of ingredients, way to cook it, how people cook it, everything, how people produce things. I'm very curious about that, and I research when I have the chance to in the places around the world. But honestly, food from home is always the food from home, and so missing the food from Portugal was something. Of course, I missed family and friends, but that's something that nowadays it's also easy to compensate with communication that we have. And one particular thing that I always missed and I couldn't find anywhere to replace was the coffee. You know, the Portuguese traditional coffee, the strong little shot in the morning. It's nowhere near anywhere in the world where I could find it like this.
Yeah. The coffee is amazing. I'm not from Portugal originally. I'm now Portuguese, and it took me some time to get used to the espresso coffees. It took me a little bit of time, but now I can't do without it. And when I travel, and then I come back to Portugal, even at a service station, you know, the petrol station on the motorway, I will stop there for a coffee because that's still better coffee than what I'd get in London, in Amsterdam, and all these places. The coffee is amazing. Yeah. But we had Rui Nabeiro on the podcast many episodes ago, talking about Delta coffee and why it's so good. And we have great coffee in Portugal. Amazing coffee.
He's responsible for that.
Yeah, he's one of the big guys responsible for that. You mentioned something about how we like to stay connected to our families, and now it's easier because of technology. But don't you find there's still something in our Portuguese DNA that we still want to be face-to-face, beijinhos, braços? We like to be in each other's presence, and that's really difficult at the moment. So this time in Portugal, what we're going through with COVID is really sad for our culture, because we love to be in the presence of other people, and we can't.
Again, I think that's a big share of our culture. So the face-to-face, the close contact, the being at ease with one another, and we do that very often during the day in our daily routines. Meals are very special for that, and nowadays with COVID, all of these restrictions are keeping that away from the normal livelihood of the people in Portugal, and that of course is something that gives some saudade about it, even if we're here and we just can't do it. So that's something that we miss. I'm sure. Yeah. Well, I'm missing for sure, honestly.
Yeah. I want to get on to rewilding Portugal, because that is something that I'm really curious about. But just one more thing. You mentioned your 5-year-old boy or girl?
It's a boy. It's Manuel.
Boy? Well, Manuel. Okay, good name. Manny. You've traveled to all these different places. How amazing is this place for Portugal? Is this place for children? I mean, it's a beautiful country for our children.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's a beautiful country in itself, but it's a beautiful country for children to grow up because of this social interaction we have that we were just mentioning. So we do it with one another, and especially with children. So they are treasure while they're growing up in a community, and find it very special. Well, I experienced while I was growing up, and I intend to share it and provide that to my kid as well while he's growing up. So it's naturally something that we do.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in such a beautiful part of the world, and something that I've seen that's so deeply, once again, deep ingrained in Portuguese culture is this connection with nature. I mean, how has being in Portugal and being where you are influenced that feeling, that connection of wanting to be connected with nature and then wanting to pass that on to your son Manuel? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, it's true. It's something that always been part of. So while I was growing up, nature was there. People understand it. People had a connection with it, and they have their rituals with it, and that's something that transpired to my education while I was growing up. And it's obviously that there's influences from people in my family that show me that way. My grandfather, who was a shepherd, and I used to go with him and experience that, and the way that he spoke about the sheep and the grass and the forest in the mountain and how all of that relates to each other in very simple terms of someone who's not educated but understands it, obviously influenced me from early ages. Then with my father, again, my father is an agronomist, and he used to visit a lot of the farming projects around in the region, and then whenever I had a chance, I would go with him. And again, I felt the same connection and understanding of all of this network of living things around that influence each other through the eyes of someone who's an agronomist, and that sparked even further interest. And that was the building basis of my education before I actually went on and researched it by myself and educated myself through the biology course and master's degrees and so on into deeper levels of understanding of this. But if I go back, I have to recognize that a lot of the things that I learned through the process were already at the beginning phase with the simple words of my grandfather telling me about those things that I later learned through science, but they were there. And it's different language to talk about the same things. And everyone generally has that understanding. Sometimes it's not sparked up, so people are not really aware, but deep down inside, they know it in a way. So that's the feeling that they got. And it's the feeling that I got when I still have the experiences with people around in this region that actually has that connection and can share it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's people in our lives that we have daily contact with, that we see more often than others, people we work with. So for me, it's my colleagues here at the office. I see my wife and my kids every day. But there's one guy that I see almost every day when I drive home from work, and he's a shepherd. And when I drive home to work, I cross over the A8 motorway near Abydos. And there's a little impasse that I cross over, and there's almost at the same time that I go home, this guy is there with his sheep crossing the motorway, and I have to wait. And I love it. It's one of the best parts of my day. I just wait for the sheep to cross.
Yeah.
And it's, I look at this guy and the way that he controls these sheep, and he's so connected to these animals and connected to nature. And I think, okay, who needs to be intellectually smart when you have this kind of connection and wisdom? I think it's just a beautiful thing. And I mean, I'm driving past these modern buildings and places, and there's this guy there with his sheep, and it's just the most beautiful part of Portugal for me, where you have that modern, but we haven't forgotten these old things, this wisdom in our culture. But Pedro, tell us a little bit about Rewilding Portugal. What is it, and how did it start?
Yeah, so Rewilding Portugal is an NGO, an environmental NGO, and it aims to bring back the conditions for wildlife come back and habitats to come back at a national level. It was started in 2019, so 2 years ago, basically, but it built on the experience that was already being driven before by another organization, and the organization where actually I was working before moving to Rewilding Portugal, and we were already partners with Rewilding Europe to set up this pilot area. That is a pilot area, one of the 8 pilot areas around Europe that is taking the chances of this new socio-economic landscape of Europe, where large tracts of land are being liberated from extractive and exploitive activities, and allow it for nature to come back. So having that as a frame of opportunity throughout these pilot areas, what we're trying to do is to promote the chances for nature to thrive and to build up the opportunity for a wilder nature in Europe, especially here, and that's our work in the Greater Coa Valley, where we focus our actions of work. So Rewilding Portugal at the moment counts with 9 people, staff, plus 4 other organizations that we're partnering to execute the projects. And then we have a broad network of other organizations and institutions who we work with. And so that's what Rewilding Portugal is at the moment. We're just 2 years old, and we have a great plan for the future.
Amazing. Where are the other 7 parts of the land that they've set out for this in the rest of Europe? Where are these other places?
So the pilot sites or the pilot regions for rewilding around Europe spread from the northern Lapland to south in the Danube Delta, west here in the Greater Kova Valley, to the east to the Rhodope Mountains between Bulgaria and Greece. And then there's the Velebit in Croatia. There's the Apennines in Italy. There's the other delta between Poland and Germany. There's also another project in Iberia that's more recent. It's just starting in the Iberian Highlands, which is southeast of the peninsula. So it's spread all around Europe, and the proposition made at the starting point by Rewilding Europe was any given group of people, organizations, or otherwise that felt that their region was a potential place for this strategy, this approach to rewild, could apply. And then there was a set of criteria to check if there were the possibilities. And this region here, the Greater Kova Valley, was one of the first 5 to be approved, and it was an application made by a local NGO. So it's very simple, actually. If people feel that their region is in condition to promote a rewilding approach, just apply, and there's different levels of engagement with this initiative, and the aim is that we help each other and learn more with each other to promote better possibilities for nature to thrive all around Europe.
Beautiful. One of the things that I mean, I love this idea of sort of reclaiming nature and allowing, you know, species and animals and plants that have possibly not survived to regrow and to, you know, reintroduce. And I think some things that people aren't really aware of in Portugal is the diversity of our wildlife. You know, it's quite well documented, our bird life. We have amazing bird life, you know, from the Algarve to the north to even here in the central region. But I mean, tell us about some of the species and the animals that you guys are trying to reintroduce. If you could shine some light there. Yeah.
So our goal is not so much about reintroducing species, but to have complete ecosystems. So ecosystems where habitat, functions, and species are present in numbers that allow it to sustain a living network of living beings. So to say. And so we do that with the conditions that we already have. So in this region, wildlife is very diverse, but is not so much abundant. So the idea here is to grow the conditions for wildlife to be more abundant. We have a lot of bird species. It's very diverse. We have wild herbivores like roe deer here and red deer. We also have carnivores as the wolf that's behind me. There is the possibility that someday the lynx come back and some iconic species like that. But it's also important to understand that it's not just about the big iconic species, but also about everything that sustain within a given ecosystem. One of the things that we're promoting quite with quite some effort is the return of large herbivores. So with these large herbivores, we understand that are big body herbivores that are mostly absent from our ecosystem in their wild version, and they were substituted by domestic, so cattle and horses and donkeys and so on. they replaces the functions of these large herbivores. What happens is once there were some decline in farming activities or change in the activities, a lot of these domestic large herbivores are missing from the ecosystem. So what we're trying to do is to replace those with rewilded versions of cattle and horses, which are easier to use and to put to use in this approach. So that is something. Besides that, in terms of other reintroductions, we are reinforcing the population of roe deer as a main prey of the wolf. So wolves with good access to a diverse array of species favor roe deer. And this is something that we want to promote in order to allow for the wolves to have natural behaviors and to naturally feed on wild prey. At the same time that we promote the coexistence with the other farming activities and livestock raising activities. So it's on both ends. We're trying to raise the numbers of readily available prey species, and preventing that the wolf has to resource to the domestic one. So that's trying to make it more naturally behaved animal, and with that support the coexistence, which is the approach that the European society has dealt with these large predators and in nature as a whole, coexistence. So trying to combine human existence and their practice and their behavior with nature to be as much positive as possible.
Wonderful. I mean, besides the obvious sort of economic benefits for farmers not losing their livestock to wolves and things like that, how has the response been? Are you seeing people that want to work together and push this forward?
Yeah, I mean, we're working in a very large region regarding the wolf distribution south of the Douro. So it's both district of Guarda and Viseu and part of the district of Aveiro. So it's quite a large extension of distribution of wolves. And within this region, of course, the difficulties to coexist with the large predator are different. But there has been quite a good response from livestock owners and raisers and farmers to adopt some of the measures that we are proposing to make it more safe for them to drive their activities with the presence of wolf. And these include the use of guarding dogs for livestock, and we support the distribution of these animals from native dog breeds such as the Serra da Estrela. We support their integration in the herds, their learning how to defend and to stick together with the herds, all the veterinary services and sanitation and so on for the first year of development of the dogs. This has been quite successful, so people ask for it. We also provide fencing in specific cases. So to build corrals that are wolf-proof, or areas where there are trespass or common trespass of wolves into livestock raising units, we support with fence to avoid that. And in the overall education, so supporting the practices that are dangerous, that put livestock at danger, and that might come into conflict with a predator, and so on. So keeping this supportive approach with the people, and people have been reacting quite well. And they listen. We listen to them. They listen to us. We can have conversation. We can build up on the knowledge and the experience together, and with that implement actually actions that work. So that has been our learning process over these 2 years. And so we're positive on the near future too.
Amazing. I mean, the part that I like is that there's not sort of a focus on a specific species, or sort of the superstar of the ecosystem. I love that it's a holistic approach, that we're looking to say, okay, let's do what's good for an ecosystem, everything. And that's a really nice approach, that it's more collective as opposed to individualistic.
Yeah. Well, it needs to be, because I mean, focusing on iconic species, of course, it raises a lot of attention, and sometimes it's necessary, and it was successful in the past with some species, but it didn't stop decline as a whole. If we take a look back, maybe we save a few species with that strategy, but we didn't allow it for the decline to continue. So we need to change the approach, and this is what rewilding claims. It's a different approach. We look at things that are complete as a whole, and we try to promote the conditions for not just for stopping the decline, but actually to reverse the decline, to increase the biodiversity and bioabundance of given ecosystems, landscapes, biomes as a whole. So that is the approach, and that has multiple layers to address. It's not just the biology, conservation biology layer about the ecosystem functions and species and habitat. It's the social economic layer. It's the education layer. Is the enterprise and tourism and promotion and knowledge about these places also has to be included. So it's holistic in several ways, so to say.
Yeah. Well, it's very, very Portuguese, the strategy, because one of the things I love about Portugal is that we think about the collective more than we think about the individual. It's something that's part of our culture. I think it's a beautiful thing. So it's natural, we're just following the natural thing. And so it's an amazing thing that you're doing. But Pedro, there's something else here. I mean, you mentioned some of the other sort of pilot areas in the rest of Europe. These are much bigger countries, much bigger countries. You're talking Italy, Germany, Croatia. These are huge countries geographically. We've got this small little patch.
Yeah.
How proud are you of the fact that we're able to do this in Portugal, in our little corner of Europe, not only in Portugal, but in your area? I mean, how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel very proud, of course, because it's as you say, it's not the first. It's not the first country you think about large expenses when it comes to Europe. So to have a proposition that aims to restore nature at the landscape level with a broad approach, it is somehow a challenge in Portugal. But the truth is that there are places, there are areas where that can be done, and the Coa Valley is one of those places. What we consider the Coa Valley is basically the catchment area of the river. So the whole extension of the river and its tributaries that extends from the Malcata Mountains all the way north to the Douro River. And once you calculate it, we're talking about 300,000 hectares. So that's quite something, and it's quite expressive. And in a country so small to find an area this big where actually there's the conditions to allow it for further rewilding, it's something that makes me very optimistic about.
Yeah, amazing. In our previous, when we first connected, you've got a great team there. The first person I spoke to was Marta, and so we have to give them some shout out here on the podcast. They're doing an amazing job. But on our first conversation, you mentioned vultures that are also part of this. I didn't know there were vultures in Portugal. I knew there were eagles.
It's a common comment. People saying that, I didn't knew there were vultures in Portugal. Yeah, there are quite a substantial population of vultures living in Portugal, mostly all along the border with Spain. So in these deep canyons of the Douro and the Tejo and the Guadiana, and so in this region, all along the border, north to south, there's quite a huge population. Here in the Coa, Agde, Maçãs, all around the Douro Canyon, it's actually one of the most important areas of nesting for these kind of birds. And we have all three species nesting, so the cinereous vulture, the griffon vulture, and the Egyptian vulture. Okay. And with that, we have also the presence of the apex predators, avian predators, which are the eagles. And we have the golden eagle, the Vanelli's eagle, the Iberian imperial eagle is coming by. It's more and more commonly seen moving around. And so they are present, and they always been. Sometimes they were with their numbers highly reduced, and if you go back in time 25, 30 years from now, the numbers were much worse than they are nowadays. So griffon vulture expanded, cinereous vulture expanded. The one that's actually not expanding and still declining is the Egyptian vulture. Okay. And Benelli's eagle, but most of the other species are either stable or increasing slightly, which is good. So this means that they will expand in the future. So they were kind of restricted to this area for a long time, but now they have the conditions to expand, and they are expanding. So there's again good news ahead, and I hope we can contribute for these news to come to light.
Beautiful. I mean, it just sort of leads into the next thing that I want to ask you about, and it's something that we've spoken about quite a lot on the podcast before as well, is the diversity of our little country. It's so diverse. There's so much in such a small area. What can you tell us about that, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. It's very diverse. There's a lot of potential in terms of conservation, and in my work, I would focus on that. And what I said before, we started in the Coa Valley. There was these chances to do so. There was already work done, but I think the approach that we're promoting here can be replicated and adapt to different other areas in the country, and not just on land areas. I would say this can very well be expanded into the marine area. We have a very long coast, and it's a diverse coast as well, and the islands, and an approach like this that considers the holistic scenario and have the consideration for the multiple layers involved. I think we can replicate and adapt what we're doing here, and the lessons learned into other areas of Portugal. And there's something that Rewilding Portugal has as a mission to do so. We're fairly young, we're 2 years old, but I hope in the future we can have the chances to actually do it as we're doing here in other areas too.
Yeah, wonderful. Pedro, let's. I've taken a lot of your time, so we can start wrapping things up slowly.
No worries.
But what are three things that you want people to remember and take away from this conversation?
Okay, just before that, because I think we step over your mentioning of the team. That is true. We're a team. We're 9 at the moment. Each of us has different roles, and we complement each other and we work together. So Marta, as you said, is our project manager. We have Fernando with us on the call as well. That is our communication officer. We have Sara, which is our rewilding conservation officer. We have Andrea, our field officer. Katie in the accounting. We have Daniel with the enterprise. We have Gonzalo and Miguel, our surveillance team. So it's very diverse in terms of skills, and we're 9. It looks like a lot, but it's not for everything that we have to do. And but we work very efficiently together, and that's something that I'm very proud to be leading as a team leader. And I would also complement that with the people that we have on the board. So we have 3 people in our supervisory board, and all three of them are very helpful. Paula, Adriano, and Cristina. They have been supportive. They extended their expertise. They're senior conservationists, and they know what they're doing, and they're also supporting the work that we do. So I would like not to leave this message behind, because you mentioned, and that is very important.
Yeah, wonderful. To the team, keep up the good work, and it's amazing what you and your team are doing, Pedro. So yeah, definitely thank you for mentioning all of those people. But yeah, 3 things that you want people to remember from our conversation.
3 things. Well, I think one is that Portugal is amazing, and we know it. So I think people should remind that much more often, I would say. I think something that I would like people to remember is that we were talking about biodiversity, and I would like to point out that biodiversity decline can be reversed. Reversing the decline of biodiversity and its abundance, it's possible, and we're doing it, and we hope to have results. So there's something to remember from this conversation, is that things can be done, and nothing is impossible. And in a way that nature itself deserved it, and it's a human moral obligation to do so. We have had too much of an impact, that we're in a moral debt to try to do something different to pay off this debt, and that's something that we're in debt with nature, and it deserves it. So that's something to remember as well.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. It's a beautiful country. We need to preserve it. We need to let it go back to what it was. And I love the positivity, Pedro. We need good news at the moment. So I love the fact that things are looking good for our future. So thank you so much. How can people follow the work of Rewilding and support the work that you guys are doing as well?
Yeah, so it's to follow us. It's I think fairly easy. Every social media network we're present, and just type Rewilding Portugal, and we're easy to find. We also have our website with all the information regarding the projects and the activities that we are doing, who we are, and all the contacts are there. Recently, we launched our Patreon account, and we actually have this chance for people to enroll in like supporting financial, but being directly involved, and that's the platform that we're using for that. And well, just contact us if you have queries, and share our information, make questions, and visit us. We're happy to attend everyone's interest. And yeah, that's the way I think you can link up with us and follow our work and support. I think sharing and just the most fundamental thing about supporting us is that let this message out and spread it around.
Wonderful. We'll put links in the show notes for people to follow you online. And please, everybody listening, jump onto Patreon and support this amazing work that Pedro and his team are doing. Pedro, finally, a question that we ask all of our guests. Portugal, the simple life. Why?
Well, I think because the Portuguese, are simple people that can enjoy the simplicity of each moment. And I think gathering that strength of will to live from every single moment, I think that's what makes it simple, and that's what makes a simple life.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Pedro. I've promised my wife that I'm going to bring her to some of those places we spoke about earlier. So definitely, when we're up there, I'll let you know, and we can get together and see what amazing things you guys are doing there. But for now, I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you call it.
Well, thank you. Looking forward to hear from you when you come by. And I think that's a wrap.
So thank you once again to Pedro, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We'd love to hear from you. And as we say in Portugal, abraço. Welcome to the simple life.